Welcome to Wholesale Hotline, where we cover everything to do with wholesale real estate. I'm Jamil Damji.
I'm Brent Daniels.
And I am Pace Morby.
And together we cover the most important parts of wholesale real estate.
Lead generation.
Conversion of sellers into contracts.
And dispositions. Guys, remember when you're watching this show, do us a favor and squad up in the comments.
Make sure that you are liking and subscribing to the YouTube channels and in the Facebook group Wholesale Hotline.
Most important, we want to know we're doing a great job for you and helping you build your business. So go give us a review on iTunes and or Spotify.
So squad up and enjoy the show!
Welcome to Wholesale Hotline number 78. And remember this, everybody out there, clarity creates energy. And that's what this whole show is about, creating the clarity for all of your questions, all those nagging things that are bouncing around in your mind about wholesaling real estate, investing in real estate, building wealth, all here over the next 90 minutes. So make sure that you are participating in this show in the comments section. We want you squatting up and we want you asking the questions that are burning in your mind, because we have got absolute superstars on the show today. Look at this. As always, to the left of me and underneath me and to the diagonal of me, we've got the best of the best of the best. That is Jamil Damji. That is Pace Morby. And for the first time, the guy that everybody wanted on the show is here, and he is looking really great with his green background. It is Scott Oots out of California. Scott, say hello to everybody.
What's going on, everybody? Thanks for having me on.
This is exciting. Pace, how you doing?
Bro, I'm crushing it, and I'm so happy to see Scott Oots. He's a good friend of ours, and I'm lucky enough to be in a mastermind with this man. He is unbelievable. We've been trying to get him on the show. He's probably one of the busiest men I know, so thank you, Scott, for being here.
And
yeah,
Pace
thanks
is
for having
saying
me.
he's busy. Jamil, how are you, brother?
I'm doing well. I just had an amazing 38 days with my daughter. She visited from Canada, but sadly today she went home. So her mom and her siblings are happy to have her back, and we're filling the void here. But it's great. I'm happy that we're here on Wholesale Hotline. I can drown my sorrows in all of Scott Oots' success. So that is very, very good therapy for anyone. If you're having a bad day, if you're feeling a little bit down, get your mind right by listening to inspirational people. And I don't think that there's a more inspiring person in the business than Scott, who runs an amazing direct-to-seller wholesale operation. Not only does he do a phenomenal amount of business, but he does it in what would be considered, in my opinion, and I think of your guys' opinions as well, the hardest freaking market to do this direct-to-seller approach in. Southern California.
Bro,
Right?
almost every day somebody says, well, I can't wholesale in California, so where should I go? I'm like, Scott Oots, Scott Oots. My answer to everybody saying that, Scott Oots. I don't even explain anything except Scott Oots, Scott Oots.
Yeah.
Bro, he's crushing it. He's crushing it. Scott, just let's start it off. I know you're very open about the numbers that you do. I've been on stage with you. I've been like very lucky to watch you speak. You are unbelievable. What kind of numbers are you guys doing right now in just I think you guys are in Texas as well a little bit, but just in California, what are you guys typically seeing on an assignment fee in California? And what do you see yearly in wholesale fees?
So yeah, Southern California is our main market, and it probably always will be, just because we love the fees out here. So we worked our way up to about a $75,000 assignment fee on average. We've got one that just dropped for recording now. That's a $290,000 assignment.
A $290,000 assignment.
Yes, we don't advertise that. You guys don't see me being flashy. We don't typically go out and say that stuff a lot, but we're on Wholesale Hotline. I mean, we got to say what we got to say.
Ring the bell. Holy shit.
You're going to get about 1,000 DMs, Scott, asking for a loan.
Well, hey, I mean, it depends on the terms, I guess.
Of course. So Scott, your average wholesale fee, you just said you've worked your way up to $70,000 to $75,000.
Yeah, I think we're at 73 in some odd sense.
Oh
But
my gosh.
yeah, so we're between 70 and 75. But I mean, that's the thing is when somebody says that, everyone assumes we don't do $5,000 deals or we don't do $10,000 deals. I want to be completely transparent. We do those as well. I had one that hit my account that was $1,800. So, I mean, you have to look at it and say that just because the average is that number, we have some that are higher, some that are lower. We're never going to turn it down if we can actually make money off it. And, you asked about revenue and things like that. I mean, I'm a very transparent person. When we start talking about revenue, there's a big difference between gross revenue and net revenue. So everyone always goes out and advertises their gross number, and it's so big and it's huge, and just like a flip, right? They have the check come in for the flip, but they're not telling you a loan came out of that and construction came out of that. So our gross revenue for this year, we just passed 5 million for the year. But again, that's gross revenue. We have marketing costs, we have employees, we have an office. We tend to run mid to high 30 profit margin on our deals or on our business. We're always trying to get that a little higher. I've got a friend that just hit 50% on his, and I'm like, ooh, tell me, how do I get there? But, we are in a very competitive market, and I don't plan on that getting to that point. But, all honesty, I mean, gross revenue is one number you look at, but net revenue, your take home numbers, a whole different ball game in most cases. And that's a number most people don't talk about.
And that when you say 30, Scott, you mean 30%, or you're averaging 30,000 per deal?
It's going to be 30% profit margin overall. We're about, I think, 36% profit margin off our gross revenue.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I was doing the math. That's very impressive, Scott. That's about 1.8 million-ish, 1.75, 1.8 million in net revenue. Guys, that is phenomenal. A phenomenal result. I've got a slew of questions for you, Scott, because I think that one of the most difficult things to do is dispel the myth of oversaturation, and it's what keeps people from taking action, right? They're like, I'm in Southern California. Everybody is out here marketing. Everybody's doing direct to seller. Your phone won't stop ringing. Every telephone pole has bandit signs all over it. There's thousands of pieces of mail going out. So with what you've said so far, I think the biggest question that I think I'm having, or what anyone else would, what does your cost per contract look like? So if you can get $70,000 or $50,000 assignment, what does it cost you to get a deal under contract on average?
Are you talking in marketing fees, Jamil?
I'm overall, right? He's going to have to pay. He's going to have to pay. He pays his staff. He pays he pays if he's doing direct mail. We don't know that yet. I'm trying to. I want to work backwards and get to that question of what the methodology is. But do you know your cost per contract? Is it different per different marketing channel?
So we always go off a cost per. I mean, we obviously track it by different marketing channels, but overall is the number that we want to pay most attention to. So we're about $4,600 cost per contract.
Wow.
But I mean, it really depends on, it fluctuates. When we've been like, when COVID first hit, right, our cost per contract jumped up to like $6,500. And then all of a sudden, all these contracts started flooding in, and then we jumped down. So we've been as low as like $2,600, but that didn't last long. That was on a very good month. So we always like really look at our KPIs really closely. And yes, we track it by marketing channel for sure, but that doesn't matter as much to me. Overall, we need to look at it and say, what are we actually paying to get each contract in the door?
Amazing. Would you tell us what your main lead generation strategies are, Scott?
Of course. So we do a lot of different things. We do text messaging. All of us know text messaging is going to start being on its way out. Response rates aren't as good. We do direct mail. We do pay-per-click. We do Facebook ads. We do Instagram ads. We just launched a full-on TV campaign. So we're all over the place. Direct mail, the thing that everyone told everyone to run from years ago because it's so expensive. When RVM came out and everyone said, stop direct mail and go to RVM, then RVM was deemed as bad. So then they told everyone to go over to text messaging. We stuck with direct mail and we did not let our foot off the gas. Direct mail will give us a killer response rate because we've been so consistent, and we're sending just about 45 to 55,000 pieces a week on direct mail, just in the Southern California market. So we do that every single week, and our response rate has been very good with it. Now, everyone says direct mail is expensive. 100% direct mail is expensive, and the majority of it.
What does that cost you per week? 45 to 55,000 pieces. What are you spending? It's about 50 cents a piece.
We're a little lower than that, a lot lower than that actually, but I don't want to say that cost because my mail house would kill me. So yes, we are lower. We're sending about $9,000 a week to the one mail house, but we just tested something completely new. So we've actually been sending for the last 5 weeks about 80,000 pieces a week because we've been testing some new marketing things. So we've been spending a lot of money in the last couple months. So, but yeah, we send out consistently every week. We do not let our foot off that gas. And I think a lot of people, that's one of the mistakes they make in marketing. They say, I'm going to take all the money I have to put money into marketing this week. Then they don't have any money for the next 4 to 6 weeks for marketing. So they can't be consistent. And I always preach consistency. You hear that from me over and over again. That literally is the word I probably should get tattooed on myself because I say it all the time.
I was going to interrupt you and say this because one of the questions that got brought up in the side chat that I'm starting to write down some of these questions so we don't lose them. Mm-hmm. But one of the viewers said, what's Scott doing different than his competition? And the first thing that popped in my head, because I'm friends with Scott and I'm very grateful to be friends with Scott. First word that popped up in my head was consistency, because I've seen Scott speak on stage and that's his thing. Is Scott is like Mr. Consistent.
Mm-hmm. I would like to say I'm 100% consistent, but I'd probably put it more at like an 80% range. But it's very important. So if you look at yourself being consistent in everything you do, this is how we really crush our competition. Is we are consistent in how we talk to a seller. We're consistent in how we make offers. We're consistent in how we market, how we follow up, how our transaction coordinator runs the deal, how our escrow team actually processes the deal. We are consistent in all of the aspects in the business. And we were not always consistent in that. It takes time. So if you're watching and you're saying, why I don't have enough manpower to be consistent in all these different things, you'll get there, right? We started with a very clear message on what we wanted to do as a company. And when I set out to create this company, my goal wasn't to have it go and make millions of dollars. My goal was focused on a team within the office. I said, I wanted to create an atmosphere where employees wanted to come to work, where they enjoyed working for the company and didn't want to leave. Because to me, that was more important, because I knew the revenue would come if I got the right team on board. And my team is absolutely amazing. I can't do any of this stuff without them. I mean, they have come on board. Our turnover within the company, I mean, really no one's quit in a long time. We actually have let some people go, unfortunately, but I mean, people don't typically leave by choice. They want to stay around because we're not just a team, we're family. You know, if something goes wrong in your life, we are all there for you. If something goes right in your life, Lindsay, my assistant, just had a kid. She's off for a couple of months and she is such an amazing person. You know, I mean, we're there for her for anything she needs. Her job's here when she's ready to come back. We want to make sure people understand that work-life balance is so important, that we want them to take vacations. We want them to spend time with family. Another guy in my office, his girlfriend's having a kid this week, so he's going to be out for a little bit. I don't know what's in the water lately, but everyone seems to be having kids. So we're like, you know what?
COVID babies, dude. People be at home just banging during COVID. That's what was going on.
I think that's it. I said the other day, I said, I think these are all the COVID babies. And then you start getting to the transition where the husbands and wives together hated each other for a while. So then you're going to see that area where there's no kids coming out for a little bit. So
yeah, but then the makeup sex. You know what I'm saying? The makeup sex is strong. You know what I'm saying?
Well, then we get to another round of babies here pretty soon. So
exactly, dude.
Hey, Kelly wants to know how big your Oots is.
Oh,
how big my what is?
She says, how large is your team, Scott?
How big is your team, Scott?
So we actually have, I believe it's 13 now, including our VAs, maybe 14, including the most recent one we hired. So 4 of those are virtual assistants and the rest are all in-office positions.
So I get, like, I look at Brent Daniels and I look at Scott Oots as two very amazing business models to go after. Okay. You guys have unique differences between your businesses. The sizes of your teams is one of them. But you're both, in my mind, if somebody says, what's the perfect wholesale business to chase after? I'm either telling them Brent Daniels or Scott Oots. But Scott, you didn't start there with 14 people. So where did you start? Was it just you doing direct mail right from the get-go, or were you driving for dollars? Were you cold? What were you doing from the very get-go?
So for me, I'm always one of those people that I don't want to start off slow. I always throw everything I have into things, and it makes my wife about want to kill me. But I had a business in the cell phone industry prior to this, and that business became very successful, but it was very boring. So I made decent money off that. And I said, how can I jump into real estate? My goal was to fix and flip. I didn't even know what wholesaling was. I said, how can I jump into real estate with the money I've made? And basically what I did, I went down to the bank, got every dollar I had in my account in cashier's checks. And I went to the courthouse steps to start buying foreclosure properties. Sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't. My wife's like, oh my gosh, here he goes again. And literally draining everything to the point where I'm like, I don't even know where our next payment's coming from. Like, but whatever, we're going to make money, right? If not, we'll make it again. So I did that. And I've done that a few times where I honestly am surprised she's still around. But I went to the courthouse step. I've been on properties, did it again and again and again. And it turned out to be fun, but I also hated some of it because there were so many unknowns. So I was trying to figure out, how can I research and figure out how to get my own leads? I don't want to stand at these courthouse steps with 20 people, going and getting the cashier's checks, not winning the property, or getting the property and finding out some person's in it, and I have to figure out how to get them out. So I went ahead and started researching, and there was a guy you guys may know called Sean Terry that popped up.
Oh,
And,
yeah. We've heard of him.
Yeah, everyone knows Sean Terry. So, and I heard the flip2freedom.com, and I was like, what is this guy? Actually, it was my wife that found his video, and she goes, you got to check this guy out. Check out his energy. And so I started watching this, and he's talking about wholesaling, and I'm like, wholesaling? What the heck is this? So I took his marketing advice, and I started doing some direct mail, things like that. And then I got a call from someone on his team, actually. And he's like, hey, do you want to join Sean's coaching program? And I'm like, oh, another sales pitch. Well, he told me a price tag, and I just about fell out of my chair. But, I said, whatever, what do we have to lose? I wired this guy this money, hopped on a plane, headed over to Sean's office, sat down, and for 2 days, just immersed in what wholesaling was. And when I got on that plane, I didn't know what wholesaling was. And when I got on that plane to come home 2 days later, I literally had an entire setup of what I needed to do with my next steps. And I went home, I put that in place, and immediately Google AdWords running, direct mail going, and I started just spending. And I'm like, at least when I do fix and flips, I knew I have an asset. This here, I'm just like dropping money, and I'm like, please work. But we did. We got our first contracts in. And at that time, I pulled my wife into the business. I'm like, you got to help. So it was the two of us working out of a room in our house, and she was answering the phones, kind of doing the initial lead call. I was doing the sales. I'd go to appointments. I was on the road like all day long in California traffic. I'd throw her in the car with her laptop, so I got the carpool lane to be able to drive out to LA. I don't know how she didn't kill me through all this, but she literally would sit in the car answering phone calls during the appointment while I'm inside. And then I'd come out, and I basically just had her ride along so I could get the carpool lane. And sure enough, we started getting a ton of leads in. The phone was ringing off the hook. And pretty soon we're like, what are we going to do? I don't know how we're going to answer all these calls. And that's when we said, okay, we've got to look at starting to hire some people, because I was locking up contracts. So I was dispoing them. I was locking up contracts. I was the TC. She was answering calls. She was doing follow-ups with people. And I'm like, every time I got a contract, I'm like, I don't even want to leave the house. I just want to call and wait for buyers to come here, because then I got to drive back out there again. But like everyone that's starting out, you start somewhere, and you have to appreciate where it is you started. Because I look back and say, this business wouldn't be where it is without my team, but it also wouldn't be where it is without mistakes, without basically just screwing off money all along the way, right? I mean, there's a lot of mistakes you're going to make, and it's not the mistake you make, it's how you recover from the mistake. And I've always been really good at looking at cause and effect on things, saying, hey, if I do this, there could be a negative effect, but there could be a positive. How can I make this decision to be as profitable as possible?
Well, Scott, there's a gold nugget in here. Okay. So like there's a common question that gets brought up all the time, and Brent has always been the person who answers this question. The question is, when should I hire my first employee? Brent, what's the advice that you typically give that Scott actually was doing during this time? Like, when do you hire somebody to help you?
I always listen, when your cup's running over, when you are so like you were just running ragged, you're doing everything, you're getting going. I mean, as you're in that tornado, right? That action tornado and everything. And all of a sudden you start saying, okay, this is too much. That's when you start hiring. Sean Terry will tell you 30 grand, 3 straight months. I love that answer. And you know, it's something important that I want to point out here that Scott's talking about is listen to what he's saying here. He's like, yeah, I'm going to throw some money at it. And if I make a mistake, then I'm going to learn from it. And then I'm going to go forward. And then I'm going to go forward. This is a common mentality of very successful people. Okay. Because he knows at some point he's going to catch it up. At some point, he's going to get ahead. At some point, his head's going to be above water, and then he's going to build something special. And it's not paralysis by analysis. It's not fear of, making a mistake and losing it all. Sometimes people are worried about spending $50 for a driving app or something. You know what I mean? It's like you have to have that mentality that you are going to win. It's just a matter of time. You're going to win. You're going to win. You're going to win. If you have enough quality conversations with distressed property owners, you're going to win. And that's the mentality. That's what Scott's saying all these things. And I'm like, yeah, man, of course. Yes.
I knew you'd like that. I knew you'd like that when Scott brought that up.
Listen, oh, you want how much for this? Okay, fine. I'm going to wire it to you, but I'm coming to your office. I'm going to get as much out of it as possible. I'm going to come back and I'm going to take action. That's what it's about. That's all I mean, I'm telling you guys, this isn't rocket science. If you guys have enough conversations, you're going to win. I love it.
So Scott, your cup starts running over.
Yep.
You go hire somebody. Who's the first hire? And then I don't want to cut you off in the middle of it. So I'm going to ask you a 2-part question. Who's the first person you hire? Second, we're seeing a lot of comments on the side of people saying, how does Scott build his company culture? Right? You have an employee first mentality. Let's talk about your first employee and also how do you cultivate that type of atmosphere?
Sure. So we actually we've done a little YouTube series on my office because a lot of people have asked me this question. So before Cody and I moved out of that office, Cody's my content guy here. Before we moved out of that office, we were doing a weekly vlog of how crazy our office actually is. And he was just doing random recordings, no acting in it. So if you check that out, you'll kind of see a little about my office atmosphere. We don't do that anymore just because we're not there all day long. But as far as like my hire, so my first person I hired, I knew that I was going to continue doing the sales for a while. So I hired a dispo person, which happened to be someone that was a good friend of mine. So I said, hey, dude, I want to give you this opportunity to do something completely different. And he did. He hopped on board. He did a great job for me. And, to touch on hiring, one disclaimer I'm going to throw out to you guys, because I agree with what Brent's saying. Like, you got to take some risks. But the thing is, too, is you got to also mitigate those risks as much as possible, because the last thing you need to do is truly go into foreclosure on a house you own because you hired someone, right? You do need to be able to look at that stuff and say, can I afford to bring this person on? I am going to see an upswing in my business by hiring this person. But to me, when I offer a job to somebody, when I send out that employment agreement to somebody, I am saying, hey, you can quit your job that you have right now, your secure job, the one you get your groceries with, the one you pay your electric bills with, the one you pay your rent with. And I am bringing you on board to my company to say, I will continue to provide you that pay, but I will also give you so many opportunities to make 5 times what you're making now. So to me, my word is my bond. When I tell someone that I'm going to hire them and I'm going to be able to afford to pay for them and not have to lay them off 2 months from now, That to me means so much. I've heard people say, hire 4 sales reps at one time, train them, let 2 go. I can't do that.
No,
I'd rather spend more time up front going through the interview process to ensure that person is going to be right for my business. Because the last thing I want to do is lay people off. What fun is that? So I want to make sure that I really stick with my word.
love it. When you're getting all of these, just I love the lead generation side, Scott, obviously, and I love kind of breaking down this process because it's something that I want to get educated on as well here. You have 240,000 mailers go out in a month recently. Who answers those calls? Who answers those calls? I mean, let's say worst of the worst, you get what, like a 0.1% response rate? I mean, you're still getting dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of calls a week. How do you handle all that?
So we actually have, we had five virtual assistants that answer our calls. So we staffed up our virtual assistants to make sure that we're not missing calls. So here's the thing. Everyone always has one person hired. They're missing a bunch of calls. They don't call people back. Here's the thing I will always tell everyone. Someone said, how are you better than your competition? Is that I will make sure I answer that damn phone.
Yep.
Because if they call your company and you don't answer that phone, the next company they're calling is mine. And guess what? We're going to pick up that phone call. So for the amount I pay virtual assistants to answer these calls, I overdo it. I don't need 5. I probably need 3. But for the cost of a virtual assistant, it's such a small cost to the business. So they do follow up for us. They answer all the inbound calls. But here's the thing. They cannot miss more than 2% of our inbound calls.
2%?
2%. So that's during the hours we're answering. So we stop answering at about 9 p.m. during the week, and we stop answering at 7 on the weekend. So if it's within that time frame, they cannot miss those calls. But keep in mind, it's not one person on answering calls. There's multiple of them on at a time. And so if one person misses it, the other person's going to get it. And they cannot miss those. You're missing calls. You might as well grab money and put a lighter to it and burn it up. I mean, that's it. If you're missing those calls, you are screwing yourself. And everyone always thinks they forget about the person answering the calls and they go and increase their marketing and increase their marketing and increase their marketing and increase their marketing. Then they say, wait, why have my deals not increased? Because you're not answering the damn phone. If you don't answer the phone, you're not going to be successful. You have to answer those phone calls. And that's one thing I learned really early. I set out in my mission statement as a business to say that we're going to offer superior customer service, something that most companies have forgot about over the years. We're going to offer that customer service that my parents or grandparents were used to from companies. We are going to be the ones that ask how you are, build rapport with you, actually care about you. And that person's going to want to do business with us because here's the big bomb right here. We are not the highest offer on the majority of the houses that we buy. One sec. Sorry, a little technical difficulty with my webcam here. There it goes. So we're not the highest offer on the houses we buy. We never are. But people come to us and give us the opportunity to buy it because they want to work with us. So you don't always have to be the highest. You just need to be the best. That's how you need to look at it. And when you're looking at hiring, you're looking at bringing people on, you need to look at all these people that you're looking at hiring and say, does this person fit in with what I want my company to be? And if that person's any doubt in your mind, I've heard so many people say, well, I don't really have any other candidates, so I'm just going to give this person a chance. No, go without them. Go without the person, because I promise you that person is going to do more damage to your business by hiring someone that should not be there. So we take our time to hire. You always heard the slow to hire, quick to fire mentality. I don't fire someone unless I know for sure I've given them every opportunity to succeed and I've given them every tool. I know I've worked my ass off to make them succeed. And if they don't want to succeed, that's not on me. So that's how we do our hiring. And it's so important. Do not hurry. Do not try to rush through this process. Interview 5 times if you need to. Find someone that wants to work and wants to be a part of something great and somebody that wants to make a shitload of money in the process.
And you do that even with your VAs that are answering these? Are they where do these VAs live?
So most of our VAs are in the Philippines.
Okay.
We have a couple in El Salvador as well. We originally they were all in the Philippines, and then there was a storm that came through, and all of them were out. Like we didn't even know if they were alive. Like we
Yeah.
couldn't get in touch with them. We're like, why are they all ditching work? Like, what is going on? Why on the same day? Is this like a walkout or something? And sure enough, we saw that and we're like, oh crap. So we did realize like we want them to take the time off they need and not worry about the job. So we hired some people over in El Salvador as well. So we have a mix in both areas now.
And they take the leads coming in. They're pre-qualifying them based on whatever training that you've done with them, right?
Mhm.
And then do they send it to an acquisition manager? It sounds like they're following up with some of these people too. Is it just if the timeline's longer, they're going to keep those longer, and if it's a hotter lead, they're going to give them to somebody in your office?
That is a great question. So our calls that our leads team has with a potential seller are less than 2 minutes in
Right.
most cases.
Yeah.
Their job is to answer calls, and their job is not to pry at the seller over and over again. Their
Yep.
job is to see, does the person want to sell? Do they need to sell? Or can they sell?
Yeah.
And if those boxes are checked, then that lead is put through the system. I don't care if that's a retail lead. I don't care if that person's going to be a wholesale deal. I don't care if that person's going to be a creative deal. What I need to do is I just need to know, does this person want to sell their house, or are they calling us to say, get me off your list? Because that ends up being a lot of people, especially every time you mail, the first time you mail a list, right? Their first calls in are always going to be, how dare you send me these postcards? How dare you? The audacity. Oh my gosh. And that's what we deal with, right? And everyone's going to deal with that, but that discourages most people. And I always tell my leads team, okay, these people came through, all the old people that are mad. You know what happens next? Money. That's when our money starts coming in. And it's so true. So my team is doing a quick, very fast analysis with these people, pushing it off, scheduling an appointment, a phone appointment with my acquisitions team, and they take it from there. Now, if we determine the person is a low or medium priority, my acquisitions team still does follow-ups on medium, but medium and low both go on auto follow-up. And some of that includes manual calls from the leads team as well. So they'll do that stuff basically forever. So they're always going to be doing follow-up. And that's part of the reason we have to keep adding leads people, just because the follow-up does get to be a lot.
Yeah, because it starts piling up.
It does. But there's money in it.
Do you know, Scott, from the ones that are that low medium, because we go through this as well, we put them in 3 buckets.
Mhm.
The low mediums, are they coming through eventually, or most of your deals or percentage of your deals coming from the ones that are pretty hot off the bat?
I mean, the majority are always going to come from the ones that are hot off the bat. But we do lock up a lot of the mediums. The lows, where we make money off those lows, is realtor partnerships.
Yeah.
That is so important. You know, like Pace is lucky he's got a realtor literally in his house, right? I don't have that. So for me, we have partnerships with local realtors where we'll provide them those leads, and those realtors will call to get those things locked up. And then we'll take a marketing fee back from them in the end. So there is money in these low ones. Well, keep in mind, when I've done these low priorities to realtors, that's before we started looking at creative options. You know, the stuff that Pace keeps talking about with creative financing and all those type of things, that is going to be such a game changer to what we're doing, because a lot of those ones that we would have walked away from because we can't make that offer where it needs to be. I've got Corey in my office now, literally making calls all day long to these people, and he's going to start locking up all these deals where less of the low priority will be passed off to a realtor, and they'll actually be locked up in-house.
Corey's doing a good job. We had him come stay at the house a couple weekends ago, and we called sellers together for 5 hours. He's got a really good deal there. And then this coming Saturday, we're doing another 5 hours. So I text him through the week, because Scott's a good friend of mine. I'm like, Scott, I want to trade with you. I want somebody on Scott's team to train somebody on my team. And so we're doing a swap. And so I want to impress on you guys out there in the audience. You guys need to become friends with each other. You guys need to be looking at each other and say, how do we complement each other and how do we help each other out? One, I just want Scott to remain my friend. I don't want him to dump me. and I want to bring value to them. But at the same time, Scott has amazing systems and processes in his business that I can leverage, and we can trade back and forth. So guys, we talk about this all the time by squatting up in the comments. You guys need to be helping each other out. I know Brent, when he was first starting, the way he squatted up with people is he would tell people, hey, come to my office on Saturday. I can't remember. What did you call that?
Super Saturdays, baby.
Super Saturday.
Saturdays.
What were you doing on
calling.
that? And how can other people in the audience do stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you find people that are interested in wholesaling, interested in becoming a real estate entrepreneur, interested in becoming real estate investors, you need to surround yourself with these people. All right. We're just different brains. We're wired differently. We're not the same as your aunt or uncle that's been in the same job for forever and loves their 401k and everything. We want that freedom of schedule. We want that freedom to do what we want to do and to have a big portfolio and to change up, our financial future of our families, right? That's what we're like. So you got to be surrounded by people like that, because I'm telling you, the first few times you get kicked in the teeth with a rough conversation, or you send somebody a letter and they tell you, did you see the sign in my yard? I'm going to report you to the FBI. I know that you're stalking me. I'm going to put you. The first time you go through some of those things, you're going to get discouraged. And if you don't have that hardcore group of people around you that you've squatted up with, it gets discouraging. And so it chips away at you over time. It just chips away and chips away. So you got to protect yourself. You got to be around the people that are doing incredible things. You got to be around positive people that have the optimism. Hey.
She calls Jamil Meal because he's a snack.
Oh boy, he sure is.
Or Mill for millionaire.
That's it. Anyway,
love you, baby.
Find people that have good energy. Find people that love this. Find people that are have that same similar brain that you have, that gets you excited about real estate and what it all brings. So
Scott, I cut you off. You were talking about how you're low interest people, right? People that, or they might just not be ready. Like there's a lead that I was talking to Corey on your team about, where the seller says, I would let you flip my house for me and you don't have to pay me any money until you find a buyer. Right. So a novation agreement. And she wasn't ready quite yet for a cash deal. So most people would see that's not a deal because I need the cash wholesale transaction right now to pay my bills. But what Scott and his team are doing is they're putting these people in longer term follow-up and utilizing different strategies. Scott's so damn smart. He actually put a full-time dedicated person on his team. That guy's name is Corey. And that's all he does is he's working on the creative deals, right?
Yeah. And I mean, he's still pretty new. I mean, first training he really got was watching your sub 2 course. And that's what he did for the first couple weeks. And then he went out to meet with you. But I mean, ultimately I imagine having 4 to 5 people on that team, because we have so many leads in the system that we can do this with. And we're going to be hiring for that. As soon as Corey proves that model and starts pushing that forward, we're going to keep hiring for that. And that, to touch on kind of the stuff Brent was talking about, he's 100% right. I mean, you need to make sure you guys are meeting people in your areas. For me, some of my best friends, like a lot of the friends I used to hang out with before I started business, I mean, I don't hang out with a lot of them anymore. My mindset shifted. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like to go out on the weekend and have some drinks and have a great time. I like to do that. I'm not going to pretend like I don't. But on the other hand, I've hung out with people that understand business a little bit more, because I try to put myself around people that are always going to try to make me better, and people that I can help in return. I always want to offer something in return to someone when I can. And there are times where you're going to take more, and there's times where you're going to give back more. But you need to get to know those areas or those people in your area, because I don't look at those people as competition to me. I mean, there's a guy that I coach that's literally in my market, and how I met this guy, I literally threatened to sue him on a deal. And now I coach the guy. He's a great guy, and he's actually very smart. But we end up, talking to people in our market, and everyone always says, oh, I can't tell them this, or I can't tell them that, or you're afraid to share everything. You only share just a little bit. And that's what I love so much about masterminds. I'm in 2 different masterminds myself, and all those people I spend time in those masterminds with, I've seen people say, well, yeah, I'm in a mastermind. I show up at 8:59 and I leave at 5:01. I head home for the night. No, because you learn just as much in that 9 to 5 as you do from the 5 p.m. to 2 a.m. Right? I mean, just sitting and talking somewhere, you learn so much information. I come back from masterminds exhausted. When I come home, my wife's like, "Oh my gosh, you're home," and I'm like, "I just want to sleep." That's because that's just how it is. I spend so many hours doing these things. When I go to events and I speak, I don't literally go back to my room afterwards. I hang out with people. I get to know people because it is so important to do that. So do not underestimate the power of relationships, because I mean, someone just reached out to me last week. Someone I'd never done a deal with. He had a deal. We locked it up, and we're going to make almost a $300,000 wholesale fee off of that deal. And when you look at that, that's a guy I would have never thought I was ever going to do business with. He's not even in the state. The lead just happens to fall in his lap. And he called me and we took care of the whole thing for him. So you look at things like that. That's a relationship. If I wouldn't have built that, I wouldn't have made that money. So you have to do that. You have to build relationships.
My favorite mastermind that I've been to was the one we went to with you in Miami. You actually run it. I don't know how much I'm allowed to talk about it, but it is still almost every single day. Like Toby Mathis, who was a special guest at your mastermind, I still communicate with him weekly. I went and set up an entire charity and an IUL and a whole bunch of other, like I'm running a nonprofit organization because of the mastermind I went to with you. And that whole day changed my entire thought process on the next 200 years. Like Toby Mathis opens it up and he says, guys, the whole thought of where are you going to be in 5 years? Forget all that. You're going to be making money in 5 years. So let's forget all about that. You need to start thinking, where's your money going to be in 200 years from now? And it changed my whole thought process. A mastermind can shatter your belief system and rebuild it, especially when you're around the right people. So I love that. One of my favorite questions so far, Alejandro Alvarez, he's out of Texas. He says, Scott, do you feel confident that everyone will be successful in your business because you are consistently marketing and have the right system in place? So that goes hand in hand with hiring people and building a culture. Do you feel like the foundation of all of that is the confidence you have in solid lead flow coming into your business?
Yes. But the thing is, you can be completely confident in your team. But things change too. I mean, there are people that don't fit in with a team and people that you do have to part with. I feel confident that with my lead flow I have coming in, if I continue to stay consistent and I continue to make sure I have the right people on board, that I will be successful forever. And in turn, they will be successful forever. Most of the people that have come on, I don't hire people with like 20 years sales experience. I just don't do it. I want people that come to me and say, man, I've tried so hard to get myself into an area that's a better fit for my family and more money. And, I've basically knocked for one of the guys knocked for, AT&T or something like that in the past. And he was making like 35, 40 grand a year. That guy's going to make 180 grand this year. So, but I was sitting down with him last week and I just said, hey man, I haven't connected with you in a while. I just want to let you know, like, I love having you on the team. You're a great guy. Is there anything I can do to support you as an employee to make you feel more appreciated? And he said to me, he goes, man, I don't thank you enough for the opportunity you provided to me. I've made more money than I ever thought I would. And this guy is literally the point he wants to start a family. He's getting married. He's doing things like that. And I'm so happy about that because we want these people to see where this business can take them. And I feel confident that if I continue to develop this lead flow and I don't take my foot off the gas, that I could have another 10 people on board that are having that same experience. And for me, I am huge into changing lives. And when COVID first hit, the first thing I did was turn off mine and my wife's paychecks. I said, you know what? I don't know what's going to happen with this, but I need to pay my team. I don't want to have any more burden on the business. First thing I did was turn off my checks. And I left them off for like 6 months. And that was important to me because I said, if I can continue to pay my team, we didn't get into that spot. Luckily, we could still do that. But I said, I'm going to make sure my team gets paid because that is the most important thing to me. The last thing I want to do is go through something, lose people on my team because they don't feel confident in the business. And then I have to build from scratch again after all that was done. So take care of your team, keep the leads coming in, and your team will take care of you in return.
Scott, I think that's a an amazing way to run a team and run a business. I've seen plenty of wholesale companies when the pandemic hit do the exact opposite. I have a similar story to yours, and it was difficult. It was a difficult choice to make when you choose that, when you choose your staff and your culture over fear. It's always, I mean, it's a difficult decision, but you do it because you're courageous and you're amazing. So hats off. I've got a few questions I've got piled up here. I want to kind of get through because I want to dive into a bit of the direct mail success that you've had. Cause I'm sure that there's a lot of folks that are in the chat right now that want to try to emulate or even get an understanding of how they might be able to do a version of what you're doing in their own market. So would you say that your lead source right now is 80-20 inbound or outbound?
Inbound, I would say you're looking at the majority. I would say 80-20 is fair because we'll do outbound texting and stuff like that. But other than that, the majority is going to be direct mail inbound.
Perfect. Okay. So how many pieces are you sending to one specific address before it becomes a contract?
So we start to see a higher response rate about the third mailing on a list.
So if a guy's out there sending 1 letter, 2 letters and quits, that's not how it's done, right? He's got to be sending 3, 4, 5 to 8 pieces. What would you say?
Yeah. So we're going to continue to mail that list as long as we see a response rate, but we're going to mail it a minimum 6 to 8 times. And we're going to mail that every 4 to 6 weeks. So when you start looking at response rates, the first mail, like I said previously, is literally that old guy that's watching for the mailman to come. He's like, oh, I'm going to rip someone a new one today. And he's just waiting. And it just so happens our postcard, the mail lady goes to drop that postcard in there. And he's like, I'll take that. And immediately dialing us off his rotary dial phone inside of his house. Right. And that person is just like, I'm going to tear a new one to this company. And that's what they do. And that's what you're going to see off the first mailing more. The second mailing, you're going to see the people that go, oh gosh, this company's just going to keep sending me this crap. And then they're going to call. The third mailing, those people are already off our list. And the third mailing is going to be more of like, hey, I've been getting a few of your postcards and, I am curious where you'd be at for an offer on my house. And that's what you start getting. So once you start weeding out these people that are do not mails and take those people off your list. A lot of people don't. They leave those people on their list and they say, oh, well, why would you do that? If you get 1,000 of those people and you're continuing to market to those people every 4 weeks, that's money. Again, you're just burning it up.
Even the time to call them is money. Even all of that's money. It
is. And since I hold my team to such a very strict do not miss calls, if I continue to mail to those people, then those people call in more and more angry every single time. And all it does is tie up our phone lines, get those people off of there. So get them off.
I like the one, Scott, where they're like, take me off your list. Okay, what's your address? You figure it out.
Yes, exactly. What's your name? You already know. Oh gosh, here we go. You're one of those. Yeah, we get those all the time.
Are you postcards and letters?
We actually have done postcards now for 2.5 years. We haven't switched to letters. I mean, it depends on the area. Like I have friends that will send postcards and they won't get anything. We send letters and our response rate drops. It's really weird. Postcards are cheaper and we typically get a higher response rate with them. So we don't overthink it. We've tried the nice shiny postcards that look so professional and cute. And, we've tried the ones with the doodles of the house and the person waving at you in the corner. And we've tried the pink and we've tried the red and we've tried the blue. But honestly, the shittiest postcard we can, sorry, I keep dropping these words. The worst postcards we send and the crappiest looking ones are the ones that typically get us the best response rate.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
How many leads inbound do you need before you get an actual contract?
Oh, I haven't looked at this in a couple months. My CEO was just telling me this. So we're getting, when calls come in, we're getting about 45% that actually become leads.
Awesome.
And of the 45% that actually become leads, typically we're going to go into follow up on the majority of those. but we're going to lock up about 10% of those. So to get the cost, I won't have that for you on here unless I go and look right now.
All good. I'm trying to get people to understand the length of time and the cadence and the consistency that it requires in order for this to work. Direct mail is an expensive strategy. I think what happens a lot of times is people will go and send out a postcard, like a batch of postcards, blow their load in one sitting, and then nothing happens and they don't get a deal and they quit. Right.
Yes.
And so I would say mail 10 houses or mail 100 houses over and over and over again before I'd mail 400 houses.
Completely agree. You have to increase as you start getting the return. And you don't want to go and say, all right, I've got $10,000 to spend. I'm going to spend $10,000 this week. It doesn't work like that, because you have to be consistent in the business. You know, we've had mail that's been delayed, right? Like we start finding what the best days are for mail to hit. And we
What are they?
Very careful. So for us, we always say the post office sends out what I call the packet of crap every week, which is all of your grocery store ads, your pizza coupons, anything that there possibly is. And what happens is if your mail gets on that day, your mailman always takes that packet, puts the mail in it, folds it over, and shoves it in the mailbox. So now your postcard or your letter is now in the middle of this packet. So you think you're going to piss people off on a normal day. I mean, they're looking like Domino's. I want that. Papa John's. I want that. Oh my gosh, a house buying postcard. I'm calling this company today and I'm going to yell at them. We found that if our mail hits Monday, the majority, and Tuesday, people are fresh into the week, coming off the weekend, and they'll deal with these things. If our mail hits Friday and Saturday, then we get about half the response rate.
Yep.
Now they may come later, but we find that if we start hitting those people early in the week, they've been drinking all weekend, they're refreshed, they've been sitting by the beach, whatever it is. And now Monday comes, they're ready to tackle the week. Once Wednesday hits, they call that hump day for a reason, right? Now you're starting to focus on the weekend. These are 9 to 5 employees. They're focusing on the weekend. So if we start trying to get people to focus on this when they just want to get through the week at that point, then we find we don't get the response rate. So the earlier we can hit that, the better. Monday, Tuesday tends to be our highest call volume. And that's when all my virtual assistants are on, ready to answer.
Beautiful, brother. And then lastly, how important is your copy?
My coffee?
Your copy, what you write on that postcard, the words.
No, it doesn't matter. I was like, my coffee's important too every morning. But no, it doesn't really matter. I mean, the thing is, people need to know very quickly what it is you're trying to do. So I've seen people send long, wordy letters, and I've seen people send letters with family on them. I've even tried the family letters. I took the guy that owns my mail house and I literally put a picture of him and his family on my letter just to see what would happen. And, you know, the response rate wasn't all there because it was just too wordy. For me, my postcard is very short and sweet. Someone's going to look at it. They're going to know what I'm doing, what I'm trying to do within the first like 2 seconds of reading it. And that's what they need to know.
Unreal.
Are you flipping any of these, Scott, or is it just straight wholesale?
The majority of the time we're doing straight wholesale, but I'll be honest, I have done a few fix and flips lately just because the market, the way it is right now, I find that I'm stupid not to. I mean, we had one house we listed. This was when there was COVID showings where everyone had to schedule 15-minute windows. And we literally filled up. We listed on Friday, all day Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And we're turning away like 100 people. We got this house 140 over asking. We had over 100 offers in 3 days. When I look at something like that, how could I not flip that house? So, but we've also taken some. Too. Yeah, I mean, both of our markets are very similar when it comes to that. Yeah. And it's cool to see, but there's also risk associated with flipping too. I mean, no one has that crystal ball on what's going to happen with the market. And you do take a risk when you do that. I mean, for me, I typically just go and pay cash for the house and just make it easy real quick. I don't like dealing with lenders on that stuff. So it does have a higher risk for me because if the market does turn, I'm probably not going to get my cash out of that house for a while.
And are you with these properties with who on your staff is running the show here? Because I've been playing around with my dispo guy and my lead manager, and I don't want to bury them, right? They still got to do their, their jobs when it comes to the wholesale business, but it's kind of feels like it's a dispo thing. It doesn't feel like it's too crazy. I'm always looking for deals that don't need a tremendous amount of work. How do you organize that? How does that look in your company?
Well, it's about as disorganized as you made it sound right
Okay.
there. So,
Okay.
because
right? It's like, oh man.
anytime you step out of your standard processes, it always makes things difficult because we are so busy right now. I mean, we have more properties in escrow right now than we ever have had, but we
Yep.
also have more properties with issues right now because of tenants and eviction moratoriums and things like that. I think we have almost 80 properties in escrow right now, and I think 60, some of them have tenant issues.
Wow.
So when you start looking at that, it's a lot of work. So then I have to say, do I really want to pull my dispo guy off of this to have him go and do this other thing? Now, the thing that I've got going for me is I have a great construction guy. He's a friend of mine. He is smart enough that he's looking out for my money. If something goes wrong at the project, he'll call me and say, "Hey man, we ran into this. We got to fix it." Because I was upfront with him in the beginning. We never hide anything in a flip. If you find a problem, we fix the problem. So he'll call me and say, "Hey man, you got to replace this AC. It sucks, but I think if we go with this other flooring, it'll be a little bit cheaper and it'll be a wash for you." So he's very good at that, and I trust him. I've heard so many contractor horror stories, and I've been so good at being able to have this contractor on all my flips. So that makes a big difference. And then my real estate agents all list it. So they're the ones dealing with the pictures and if we do staging or anything like that. So typically my dispo guy, if anything, he'll walk the project once or twice, but in most cases he's not really involved. My transaction coordinator will process the transaction, make sure insurance is in place and stuff like that as well.
Cool.
So is working in a saturated market, does it come down to a mentality, or is there some sort of secret sauce that you've figured out that nobody else knows about?
Here's the thing. I don't do anything different. The lists I pull are the same lists anyone else pulls. So, but we talked about consistency. I'm consistent in my message and I'm consistent in everything I do within the business. The people that are not becoming my biggest competition is because they're not being consistent. That's what it comes down to. And I understand it's tough to be consistent for some people because you're working a 9-to-5 job, right? So if you're working your 9-to-5 and you're saying, dang, when do I make these calls? I have to make these calls on my lunch break around noon. I have to call people after 5 o'clock. Can't really call people at 6 in the morning. It just doesn't work. They'll never go with you. So when you start looking at that, it is very tough for somebody with a 9-to-5 to start this business, but it is 100% possible. You could very easily start while you're doing your 9-to-5 business and become my biggest competition. But you know what? I applaud that. Bring it on and we'll do deals together. If you need help moving deals during this time so you could do your 9-to-5, by all means, let's do it. Let's partner on that. But everyone always has so many excuses on why they can't accomplish something. That's the mentality we have to throw out. Yes, it's a saturated market. And yes, there's a lot of people out there. But here's the thing. Most of the wholesalers that are out there locking up deals, they're paying way too much for these properties and they end up having to back out. So for us, I have said that I'm not going to be that wholesaler that locks up a property and then has to go for price reduction on every single one of them. I don't do that. We've had to in the past when there's absolutely no choice. Like when a house sells at a lower price down the street and you're like, Mr. Seller, I don't know why my camera keeps doing that here. I was like, Mr. Seller, listen, this house down here sold for less. I can either release you or we can talk about a different price. But a lot of people use it as a model. They actually go out there and say, I'm going to lock this up at 500,000 and then I'm going to price reduce him to 400,000 2 days before closing. And there's a lot of gurus out there that teach that. And I just want to go online and just start bashing these people and say, stop teaching your students this because your credibility is gone. And people that do that will never be competition to me.
Nope.
Competition are going to be people that actually care about the seller as much as my team does. They're going to be consistent and go out there. But I still applaud those people. I don't there's different ways to look at competition. You can look at competition like they are literally your enemy, or you can look at competition like they're people. If you figure out how to work together, you can very easily make money together. And we've worked with a lot of wholesalers in our market. But here's the thing. I will not work with wholesalers that come and join my list acting as a buyer and then daisy chain my deals 10 times. I just won't do it. Those ones are the ones that are literally dead to me because I am all about honesty. So start working with companies like mine. I don't have a problem if somebody comes and says, hey, Scott, I'd like to try to bring some buyers to your deals to see if I can make some money. You know what? I'm fine with you doing that as long as you're transparent and get our permission up front. But if you don't get the permission, you try to surprise us with that later. Hey, I want to name change this contract. Sorry, man, you signed the contract. You better close.
Bro, I
know,
think that's a great topic because people get confused with daisy chainers and co-wholesaling, right? So one of my favorite things with really honest, upfront people is, hey, we'd like to help you find a buyer for this. Do you mind if we add some money on top? Dude, hell yeah. Not only am I okay with it, I've been waiting for you to freaking call, which is why Keegley is such an amazing business model, right? Because they fit that mold, or they created that mold rather. The thing that's frustrating and infuriating is that with daisy chainers, which is, I differentiate them between co-wholesaling and daisy chainers, is when a daisy chainer doesn't communicate with you that that's what they're doing, and then they have 5 people after them they have no control over. And when you say, hey man, what's going on with escrow? What's going on with EMD? They have no real answer for you. And now you're playing this game. It is challenging. It's really challenging. Jamil, is there any magical way to overcome that? I know you guys do a lot of co-wholesaling, the biggest in the country, to be honest. Is there any way to overcome that?
It's just what people are learning, and it's truly, here's the thing. There's a lot of information on YouTube. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of videos that people are watching out there where they just get bad advice. These aren't bad people, right? They're not bad people. They're normal. They're just normal folks trying to make a buck, right? Mm-hmm. And so when they fuck up because they don't understand. They don't know what they're doing, right? The thing is show up to Wholesale Hotline. Reach out to Scott Oots. Reach out to Pace. Reach out to myself. Reach out to our teams. Ask us. Find out what's the appropriate way of doing this. If anything I can tell you, the one thing I tell every one of my students is you need permission. You actually need to get it in writing. Get an option signed. Get permission from an acquisition wholesaler to market their deal, and then bring them a buyer. Add value to the relationship, right? But if you're going to get someone's blast and then just send their deal out to, 30 or 1,000 people, you're not going to do business that way.
The best is when you get your own deal sent to you from somebody like 7 layers deep.
It happens to me all the time.
Me too. I love messing with those people. I always say, man, actually, I'm really interested in this. I'll put in a full price offer. Can you send me the contract? And then I start getting, it takes a day or two by the time it goes back through the chain. But then that one person comes to you and says, hey, I got a buyer. Can I get the contract? And I say, gotcha. So now I know who the person is that's doing it. And then we can go to them and say, hey, man, it's actually me on the other end of this, probably 10 people deep and marked up about $400,000. So I'm going to need you to stop doing this. And we'll send out cease and desist letters to those people just saying, hey, you're messing with our business. Because by the time you go that deep on a daisy chain, someone approaches the seller. And we've had them, they go to the seller and they send them our email where we're putting the deal out, and it starts screwing up our deals. And I've actually sued those people in the past where they've gone up to people and we tell them, we'll go to the people first and say, hey, you need to knock it off now. Don't go to the seller again. I have this under contract. I can get legal with you if you want me to. And some of these people just say, they tell me where to go. And I'm like, all right, then I'm going to pass this off to my attorney. You're not going to like what's going to happen, because if you're messing with my income, you're messing with my employees feeding their families. And that's not going to happen. So.
Well, in the world of assignments and co-wholesaling and all of that kind of stuff, really good question on the screen here. How do you guys determine an assignment fee? Is there a magical formula that you guys follow, Scott, or is it case by case? And if it is case by case, give us some insight on that.
I mean, our goal is always going to be to make as much money as possible. A lot of people say go 70% minus repairs. The thing is, that's not a one size fits all. If we go out to San Bernardino County we may get properties as low as 50, 60%. If we go out to LA, we can maybe pay as high as 85% because there's so many different things you can look at with a property. Like, is it zoned for 2 houses or 3 houses, or, what is it? If you start looking at those type of things, it is going to change the way you calculate your offers. So the way we always look at it is we try to figure out, what can we sell this house for? What can we assign this house for to a buyer? What is the most we think a buyer will pay for this house? Then we go back and say, all right, what's the repairs that need to be put into it? We back that off it. What will we like our assignment fee to be on this? We always try to shoot for 70, 75 grand. And then that gives us our offer. And then at that point, we say, is this offer in line with where the seller needs to be? Typically, no. Typically, you're like this. And then what happens at that point? You're negotiating with the seller, but also lowering your assignment fee in the meantime. So you're slowly closing that gap to the point you guys get even eventually. Now, I'm not going to say $70,000, then go right down to $5,000. My goal is going to be to get the seller down as much as possible. Now, my wholesale fee might end at 30 grand, but the seller also moved their price by potentially 30 grand. So you have to start looking at some of those things and not assume that. A lot of people say, I'm going to pay the seller what they want, add what I want to it, and my buyers will pay whatever the heck I want. It doesn't work like that. A buyer is going to pay to a point where they get a return. And if you're someone out there trying to screw over your buyers and pull the wool over their eyes, they're not going to come back to you. Our buyers come back to us because we ensure they get a good return, and they do not argue about our wholesale fees. I mean, I'll go to this guy and say, hey man, last time we made 5 grand on you. This time we're definitely making some good money on this thing. So I want to make sure before you sign our contract that we don't have any issues, and don't try to change this price on me. And they'll be like, oh gosh, yeah, I want it. How much is it? And I'll say, well, it's about 190 grand. Oh gosh. And I'll say, remember that last one where I only made 5? And I mean, if you've got a good relationship with your buyers, they know that we win some and they win some.
So
And
Scott, that comes out up probably once a month on Wholesale Hotline. Is somebody in the comments will say, what do you say to a buyer that asks how much you're making on an assignment fee? Does your disposition team have a magical phrase or anything like that they say?
So when someone comes like that, we know that buyer's typically new, because they're going to be the newer ones on the list that are worried about that. And so we'll go back to the buyer and say, Mr. Buyer, I'm not exactly sure on the number on that one right now, because we're still in negotiations on obviously getting you on board. So our wholesale fee depends on what price we get you at. And, but typically our assignment fee doesn't really matter too much, because our assignment fee is included in the price you're paying. So you shouldn't really have any issues with whatever the assignment fee is, whether it's 10 grand, 20 grand, let alone they may be surprised it's 190. But the thing is, you have to set that precedent early, saying our goal is to ensure that you get a return on the property based on the amount of money you're paying. Now, if I'm just really good at negotiating with the seller where I get myself a larger fee, it doesn't change the fact that you're still getting the return that you wanted to on this house. Are you ready to move forward? So people are so worried about, I have to tell them my assignment fee. You really don't. I mean, they're going to find out during the process. It's not a secret. But at a certain point, people worry about that question so much. All it comes down to is managing relationships. It's just like a seller saying to someone, hey, can I get proof of funds? You know how many times we provided proof of funds? I mean, we have it, but do you know how many times we provided it? I mean, maybe 5 since we started this business.
Mm-hmm.
So
except it's something that cripples people so deeply that they won't take action.
100%. It cripples them because they don't try to build that rapport to get around that question. And for me, we'll go back to them and say, yeah, Mr. Seller, we could get that for you. But, what is your concern that I haven't addressed that you need the proof of funds for? And then typically they're going to say, well, I know, people don't come through in this industry. Oh yeah, but we've been talking. Do you have any reason to believe that I'm not going to come through? Well, no, I don't. Okay, great. Well, let's get this thing done. And you can get right around it. But people freeze up so much when those questions come. And the 2 big questions are the 2 we just talked about, right? I mean, those are 2 huge questions that people freeze with when a seller and buyer come to it. And it's like, you have to just realize, stay calm, keep your voice at the same level, and talk to the seller, talk to that buyer, and fix the situation. Because you're not going to make money if you start pushing back at them or say, if that matters, I'm not going to sell to you. Guess what? They'll go somewhere else. Yes, we need the buyers, and yes, they need us, but it's a partnership is what we need. You don't treat your buyers like crap. You don't treat your sellers like crap. You have to treat people with respect to build relationships. And that's why we have such good reviews online, because people always, we'll make a $200,000 assignment fee on something and people are leaving us reviews saying, this company's amazing, their offer was fair. And in the end, we're like, oh my gosh, we just made so much money off your house. But they're so happy with it. So you want to make sure people are happy. And honestly, make sure if you have a bad experience, maybe don't go to that one and ask for a review, see if they do it on their own.
Scott, so there's a question here from Andrew Smith about double closing, and I have an understanding of why you typically don't like to do that in California, but why not double close?
So there's a few things to touch on here. So a lot of people, when they talk about double closing, they're talking about using the buyer's funds to actually close your transaction. So you've got your A to B contract, seller to you, and then you got your B to C contract, you to the buyer. A lot of people try to use their buyer's funds to close the A to B transaction. Well, there's a very, very fine line in California with doing that. You will find some escrow companies that will do it, but you will probably eventually get tagged on that and you're going to run into some problems. So for me, why take the risk when I'm good at telling my buyers, hey, and they've got no problem with my assignment fee, I'm good at building those relationships. Why would I double close and do another set of paperwork? Why would I go through that?
Are there rules in California that because from what I know, it's still legal to double close, use the buyer's funds to fund an A to B escrow? Has that changed in the last little while, or is there any new legislation that's preventing that?
It came down to them cracking down on it. So it was about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, where I was warned that I really should stop doing that. Okay. And again, you can, but I highly do not recommend it. So for us, one thing title companies are starting to do now, it's the new wrench they're throwing in the plan. Large wholesale fees, they're starting to say they won't issue title insurance on them. So they're saying that I won't issue title insurance because your wholesale
on a
fee
large wholesale fee. Holy crap.
And in your mind, you look at it and say, why does it matter to you what I'm paying for the property? But that's the issue we've ran into now multiple times. So we've actually had to double close some properties where we bring funds to close because of this. Like the one we're getting 280 in tomorrow, I had to fund 500 grand or 400 grand to get that 280 in. Because otherwise the title company said, hey, we will not insure it with the wholesale fee, which means my buyer would need to bring that additional money in, and that screws up his lending. So that kind of stuff you've got to be prepared for. We had to pivot very quickly, but first it started with them doing it with a $250,000 fee. Then they did it with like a $120,000 fee, and they just did it last week with an $80,000 fee. So we're starting to see these title companies tighten up a little bit more on this. And we've actually gone to different title companies to try, and it's happening everywhere. So this kind of stuff is the next thing we're going to have to deal with. I mean, you figure we've got 70, 80 properties in escrow. If we needed to go close on every single one of those at a $500,000 to $800,000 purchase, damn, I'd have to go out and get a lot of hard money or private money to make that happen. So that's stuff we need to be prepared for.
And on average, what would you say the closing costs on a deal in Southern California work out to?
Well, I mean, when we're doing assignments, we're not encountering any fees.
But as a buyer, if you have to double close, what does that look like usually?
If you're not looking at realtor commissions, you're looking at just escrow, title, all that kind of stuff. You're probably looking at 1.5%, 2%.
Which at the prices that you pay in California is a lot.
It is, yeah. I mean, when you look at a $1 million house, yes. But I mean, keep in mind, I mean, we do houses that are $80,000. We do houses that are $1 million. So
are there sub areas of Southern California where you're bullish in and areas where you stay away from? Where are the breadcrumbs where your organization is doing the majority of their deals?
We're doing the majority out. So LA County and San Bernardino County. Big Bear is actually a really good one for us during the summer, but during the winter, when the snow starts hitting, buyers tend to pull back up there a lot more. So we typically market Big Bear as summer's approaching and stop marketing Big Bear as summer's ending. you'll learn all those little tricks like as you get going too, right? I mean, as you start to know the areas well enough, you know when you want to market out to places. And we've started trying to cater our marketing a little more towards places people want to be, like Palm Springs. A lot of retired people live out there, but it's a killer Airbnb area for summer. A lot of people go and visit. So if we can find houses out there that somebody wants to Airbnb, then there's a really good opportunity out there.
So what do you do with all this money you make? Are you buying properties? Are you investing in weird stuff? Like, what do you do with all this? You got $1.8 million sitting here half a year. You've been doing this for years. Like, what do you do with it? Like, give people like the overall, what's your big goal? Is it a bunch of houses? Is it development? Is it being a bank? What do you want to do, Scott? Come on.
I mean, for me, I love starting businesses. So I think that's a lot of fun. We've got our skip trace company, our cold calling company. We've got a lot of different things we do because it's good. So I'll put money in that. But for me, when you look at like say $1.8 million, like you said, we're running a lot of stuff through our IRA as well, a lot of deals that way. So it's not actually taxable income. So it's not like all that money's coming right into my pocket. A lot of it's going into IRAs and things like that too, because it limits that tax liability. So we'll do that. But for me, the whole point in me opening the Dallas, Texas market was to be able to build that huge rental portfolio. Now, originally I was like, all right, I'm going to get out there and we're going to burr the crap out of this market. And we're going to, start buying all these properties, refinancing them, using the cash for that. And then, as I started basically meeting pace and I started changing my mentality on that. I'm like, well, screw that. But we realized with Dallas, we'd get a ton of properties under contract there, but I was looking for home runs. I was looking for ones where we were making good money. But then every time we go to look at a deal and we calculate the taxes that Dallas has, then we're like, damn, there's not as much money in this as I thought. So we decided that Dallas wasn't really the market that we wanted to do our portfolio in, just because of the tax rate. It takes away such a large chunk of the
bro. That's such a great point. I will
taxes.
Oh, dude, Texas property taxes are. I have one property. It's probably like a $600,000 house. It's an Airbnb because that's really the only exit strategy I utilize in Texas, just because you need high cash flow there in order to supersede the tax rate. That $600,000 house, I think I'm paying like $900 a month in taxes.
Ooh.
Yeah. That's the problem.
Wow.
That's why we decided not to do it, because it's frustrating. You start looking at these things and you're like, all right, management fee, take that off. You take for vacancy, repairs, and then you're like, what am I missing? Oh yeah, everything that takes my profit away, the taxes. And you put that number in and you're like, all right, so I could buy this house. I could lose $300 a month. That sounds amazing. Depreciation, I guess.
There you go.
That's why most of the guys in Texas are selling. So what they're doing is they're buying sub 2 or seller finance. I just had dinner with Scott Horn, 35-year sub 2 seller finance attorney in Texas. And he's like, that's why nobody holds rentals here in Texas, is because we don't want to pay the property taxes. So what they do is they buy sub 2 or seller finance, and then they sell it out on seller finance as well. So they don't have to pay the property tax. The problem with that, which is what Scott just brought up, is that you get zero depreciation for that. And when you're making millions of dollars, you need depreciation. Like, you need depreciation, or else you got a big old hefty tax bill. So that's a good it's a good point, Scott. For me personally, Atlanta has been like a really, really great area where weather's really good all year round. Property taxes are amazing, but it's unbelievable how many people go, I'm going to go invest in Texas, or I'm going to move to Texas because there's no income tax. Meanwhile, you're getting destroyed by the property taxes.
Well, if they're moving from California, they're still coming out they're still coming out.
Yeah, that's true. It's a good point, dude. Dude, there are so many great questions. But by the way, guys, we have hovered around 500 live viewers all evening because Scott has brought so much stinking value. I put up Scott Oots' Instagram. If you guys are not following him, his team does a really great job on Instagram. Scott, are you doing majority of your stuff on Instagram, or do you have a team doing that?
I mean, I am answering as many things as I can. Cody, he'll jump in there and help out, just because I didn't realize for the longest time that there was like 3 message boxes on Instagram. You got your primary, your general, and then apparently you have requests.
Oh,
So
yeah.
when I discovered all these things, let me be clear how I don't know Instagram. I literally discovered about 3 weeks ago that when you post a story, it doesn't actually stay on your page in those little tiles. I found that out a few weeks ago. I thought when
Oh,
you post
damn.
on there, it stays. And I learned that the hard way. I was like, my wife's like, how come I'm not on your Instagram that much? I'm like, I post you all the time. She's like, yeah, in your stories. I'm like, yeah, exactly. Oh, they don't stay? Oh, apparently
yeah,
I
they're
was
24 hours.
36
Oh,
years
man.
old when I learned that.
Now there's TikTok you got to figure out, Scott. I mean, the whole thing, man.
It's nonstop.
Dude,
Your team
no.
does a good job, though. Your team does
Exciting.
great edits. I love what you guys post. I just posted Scott's Instagram in the side chat, guys, for everybody. Please subscribe to him or follow him on Instagram. And Scott, are you pushing pretty good on your YouTube channel now?
We're starting to. So I'm getting a look over here this direction.
Yeah.
Over here. Because I haven't been so good at sitting down lately and shooting videos. This is probably the first time I've literally sat with this beautiful screen in the background at this desk in quite a while. So I think Cody here is probably ready to tie me to this chair and make me start shooting content because I really do enjoy it. It's just time gets by very quickly.
Well, didn't you guys just get a whole new studio in Newport specifically just to do content?
Did he just call me out? I think Pace just called me out.
I was doing that to Cody
Come on,
right there.
Scott, we need some more Scott Oots out there. Come on,
Yeah.
be loud.
We've got
Be
some
loud.
cool
You're
stuff in
just-
the works. We're ready to do it. I mean, it took us a little bit to get everything we ordered in, get it all set up, but we're all ready to go now. So we're going to start putting out a lot of cool content and things like
So
that.
Scott, a lot of people were asking about your meetup in California. Are you still doing that, or are you going back to that at any point?
So I want to go back to it. We have, I think, almost 1,200 people in that meetup group, but unfortunately, COVID literally stalled us.
Yeah.
We did a couple virtual ones through Zoom. It just didn't get the same effect and feel as that in person does. So now that California is kind of starting to roll back to more mask mandates and stuff like that, I don't know when the next time that's going to be is. But we will go ahead and we'll do a Zoom one here pretty soon for everyone. So if anyone on here wants to join that meetup, it's free. SoCal Real Estate Wholesalers, just request to join. We'll get you in there, and then we'll do a Zoom one soon so we can answer some questions.
Scott, here's a great question. I was on a panel with you recently. Actually, we were talking about negotiations and talking to sellers. Question is, how do you become a better negotiator when trying to get your first deal?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. So many people are so focused on being prepared for everything the seller might do or might say that they're setting themselves up for failure. And I always say to people, just pick up the phone and just start dialing and just start talking to people. Because when you start doing that, you're going to find that you're getting better over time. You're going to start taking notes on where you're getting stuck and what part of the conversation that is. And I highly recommend you record the conversation so you can go back the next day and listen to yourself on the phone, because you're going to be able to give yourself tips based on what you did wrong. Because when you're on the phone, it's different than listening to that call. But get on the phone and start making calls, because I promise you, if you get on the phone, you start making calls, you're going to get better. But if you don't get on the phone and start making calls, you're not going to get better. And that's the guarantee I'll give you on this call today. You have to start doing this. If you don't talk to people through this, and I know I keep like dropping Brent Daniels here, if you keep talking to people,
I love it.
If you keep doing that, it really does work. And the more you do that, the better you're going to get. I mean, you can go and just go to a car dealership and screw with people. Go and find a $50,000 car and say, you know what, I'll give you 10 grand for it. And just see what they say, because they're going to reject you. But you're going to learn how to take rejection by doing that. So you have to learn how to take rejection without getting mad. And a lot of people get angry when they get rejected. And just because a seller says no right now doesn't mean it's forever a no. But if you go ahead and you start yelling at that seller, well, fine then. You're never going to find anyone that pays that much for that piece of crap. You start doing that, that seller is never going to call you again. But if you say, hey, Mr. Seller, I understand where you're coming from. you know, we're not that far apart. We're only 100 grand apart here. I mean, I've been much further and made deals happen. So, if you'd like, we can continue talking on this and do this. And I always tell people it's a small amount, whether it's 100, 150, $200,000. Oh my gosh, it's such a small amount. And they're like, small amount. Oh yeah, we've been much further than that on deals before. And you start working through that with people. But bottom line, record everything. I saw someone actually post something about a recorder for recording. You can just get voice recorder app on your phone. It's free, and start recording that. Start recording your calls and listen back to it. And
I would say that's my favorite advice. So for me, when I first started, all the way up until last week, it is such a habit for me to record every single seller phone or meeting. I had a wholesaler here locally that said, "Hey, I've got a seller that's asking full retail. Will you come to the appointment?" I was like, "Hell yeah." Dude, before I'm even out of my truck, I'm putting my phone on airplane mode, and I'm going to my voice memos and I'm recording it. And then I leave and I upload it to Dropbox immediately. And I'm going to share that Dropbox link with all of you guys. I actually called this appointment. It's a 19-minute appointment. I'll share with you guys. It's a Dropbox link, so you guys can have the whole thing. I called it Go for No. And the reason why I called it Go for No is because within 1 minute, I knew, just from experience, I knew that the seller wasn't quite ready. So I went for the no. And the faster I went for the no, the seller wanted me to stay in the house. So it's really interesting to go back and re-listen to these things, even after years of being in the business. You've got to be open for criticism of yourself. So for me, I'm driving home from that appointment, listening to the thing. The wholesaler says to me as we leave, he goes, "Dude, you are unbelievable." And I'm driving home criticizing myself, going, "Oh man, I shouldn't have said that. Oh man, I should have slowed down. I should have paused there." So guys, this game, you never figure it out. It's a fun game you get to play for the rest of your career. Have fun with it. Don't take yourself too seriously. Do exactly what Scott just said. Record the conversation and have fun with critiquing yourself, or squad up with other closers and say, "Hey, closer, what do you think of this? Do you think I did a good job? Do you think I should have stopped and paused here? How should I have answered this question better?" Write those things down, memorize them, and then go right back into battle again, because that's what this business is. It's a lot of fun.
I also think it comes down to pre-qualifying them. If you're looking to get your first deal, the biggest mistake is that, you kind of feel a little bit awkward having these conversations about real estate. Just focus on the 4 pillars: the condition of the property, their timeline to sell it, their motivation or what's their problem, and their price. If you use that as the skeleton, the scaffolding of the conversations that you're having, the natural progression of that conversation is you getting a contract signed. All right. It just depends on if you have competition. Remember, we're deal finders. We're not deal creators when we're looking for discounted properties with people that are in distressed situations. So sometimes we try to force too hard because we're trying to make something happen when it's not. Or we try to, like Scott was saying, lock things up high and try to bring them down later. That's not the way to do it, not to build a long-term business. It's about pre-qualifying them, staying in front of them, having a fantastic tone. You have to have that optimism. You have to be certain, and you have to be likable. You have those 2 traits, certainty and likability, and you're pre-qualifying, you will lock up deals. It is not rocket science. It is not magic. There's no secret sauce to it. You do that, and you will be successful.
I think the question on the screen is amazing for all 3 of you guys. I'm curious. All 3 of you guys.
Yeah.
Brent, Scott, Jamil. Let's start with Brent. Have you ever had a moment where you wanted to quit?
Nope. No, I love this. I've loved this since reading Rich Dad Poor Dad and getting into it, and just I absolutely love this. There's been certain parts of the business I wanted to quit, partnerships for sure, but the real estate business, oh no. This is it. I mean, what there's a better industry? Come on.
No. Scott, what about you, bro?
To me, that's kind of a 2-part thing. As far as wanting to actually quit the business, I'm too stubborn for that. So I wouldn't do it because I didn't want to fail. But on the other hand, I did get kind of screwed over by somebody that I hired, and he was one of my very good friends. And at that time I said, man, if this is the way business is, what am I doing? And I did think about that at one point. And I'm like, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to put myself out there again after I, lost one of my really good friends and stuff like that? That was tough. But as far as wanting to quit, you may have a feeling like you think you want to quit, but a lot of it's probably just you haven't made that traction yet because you're lost. And I don't think that's necessarily, it's Kenneth's question. I don't think it's necessarily you saying, hey, I want to quit. I think it's that you're saying, hey, I don't really know where to go next, and I need help getting to that next point. And I think if you had people around you to help you get to that next point and to cheer you on, then you're not going to be having those feelings in most cases. Of course, here I am telling you how you feel, but that's how I feel about it.
Jamil, what about you, brother?
Well, I took that breather back in 2008, after I hung out for about 2.5 years and did comedy, but that was the only time.
Guys,
How
there
about you,
is
Pace?
bro, the second I got my first check, I got it from Drano. It happened rather. I had no idea what I was doing. I had to call Jamil and go, what's an assignment contract? Right. I had no idea. I just knew I loved talking to people. And when I got paid, I was like, wait, hold on. I literally just got paid 25 grand to do maybe 4 hours worth of work.
Maybe.
And I technically they're not my client. The seller is not my client. I'm the client. I'm the buyer. Now, there is customer service for sure between both parties, but I was like, I don't have to have a customer. I'm the customer. This is the craziest thing, dude. The second I realized that in that moment, in my first 30 days in this business, I have not even had a glimmer of thought of doing anything else because I didn't figure this business out until I was in my 30s.
Mm-hmm.
So through my 20s, I tried all sorts of stuff. I had significantly large businesses like my construction business and other things. I know what it's like. It's just like Scott, when you're running your cell phone business, you know what it's like to run any other type of business compared to this. The rewards are too big to even think about anything else. Now, I'm sure all four of us on the screen have other businesses outside of direct real estate related, but it's because of real estate that we've been able to do that. And real estate's the foundation that allows us to do that. Wholesaling real estate is Brent, what's the thing you say? You say wholesaling is the gateway drug?
It's the foundation. It's the foundation of your real estate entrepreneurial, efforts. Being able to source deals, being able to source discounted properties is fundamental. And once you're able to do that and do that consistently, you're unstoppable. You can do whatever you want. You could develop, you can own portfolios, you could fix and flip, you could be the bank, you could coach, whatever you want. All 5 of those things are within your grasp if you learn the skill of sourcing discounted properties.
Mm-hmm. And it's not that hard. I mean, it's not that hard. This is the thing is you look even back when I started in 2015, it makes me sound so old and ancient right now, but we didn't have all of these YouTube videos and everything out there that you have now. You don't have all this free content. I mean, people aren't
You have to listen to Sean Terry on cassette.
All right, I'm out.
I think it was a DVD, Pace.
Yeah.
It was a DVD. All right. I mean, but that's the thing is there's so much content out there now that people like us, I think there got to be so many people that were offering bad advice out there. And that's what made me start going, you know what? I want to offer some good advice to people. And I can't say that everything I say is going to work for every person here, but I wanted to get out there and offer something to somebody that is different. And we have free content out there. You can go listen to all this stuff and get going. But here's the thing. Don't wait to get going while you listen to all that stuff. That is so important. I've heard some people say, hey, no, I haven't talked to that seller yet. I mean, they called a week ago, but no, I still have to go through all these YouTube videos. I have to register my LLC. I need a business card. I need pens that are branded for the company. I can't go out there with a notepad without my logo on it. Crap, I need a logo. I got to go get that. Just stop. Shut up. Get out there and start talking to people. It doesn't matter what you have. It doesn't matter if you show up in a car that's literally backfiring around the block. It does not matter. People are so focused on this stuff, and it does not matter. Start talking to these people and start getting better at what you do. And 5 years from now, 6, 7, 8, you're going to have businesses that bypass all of us right here on this screen because you guys have the content that's free. And you guys have so many places you guys can go that you guys are going to blow us all out of the water. We're going to be old sitting in our freaking retirement bed, and we're going to be living off our subject to income. And you guys are going to be out there killing it. So get out there and do it. God, I sound old now. This doesn't work for me.
You're doing good. Yeah, you're crushing.
I did see one comment that popped up there about contracts real quick. I've changed my contract probably 100 times over 5 years, 6, 7 years, however long I've been in business now. So you're going to continuously change your contract. My contract does have a lot of teeth to it. I love what I've done to it. We have those for free, right, Cody? Where are they at?
If you want to go to scottootsrei.com.
Go to scottootsrei.com, and then you can get my contracts right on there. They're free for you guys.
Thanks, Cody.
You're welcome.
Awesome. That's it, guys. 95 minutes. Look at
Dang,
that.
that's it. That went by
Awesome.
quick.
Scott,
You should
thank
do this
so
more
much.
often, Scott.
Amazing.
Yeah,
You just got to invite me. I'm here.
I love it. I love it. Any Pace, tell people how to find you. What do you got? What do you got live? How do people interact with you this week?
Everybody, you can react with me on Sunday service, 7 p.m. We usually get about 500 to 600 live viewers on Sunday evening, 7 p.m. Arizona time. We only talk creative finance. So I saw a lot of questions about lease options and all sorts of fun stuff. Guys, come hang out with us on Sunday. We give you all sorts of amazing content. We've been doing that for over 2.5 years. So would love to see you there. And that's right after I watch my favorite show on Sunday, which is Jamil's show. Jamil, tell us what show you got.
You guys can tune in at 5 o'clock Pacific for Straight Outta Comping, so that you're not that wholesaler that locks up deals too high and then retrades. Know what you should be paying for a house. Silly mouse.
Love it. And guys, I go live Wednesday, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. This week we are talking deal or no deal. What? How to figure out the numbers behind the deal so that you are locking up the best ones. And really, when you make a commitment to the seller, you can stick with it, just like we talked about it today. So join me 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, Brent Daniels YouTube channel. And Scott, when are you going to go live? Come on. Tell the people. We got
I was just thinking in my head. I'm like, you guys are going to hold me accountable for this now. So
That's right.
I think that we'll start planning a time to go live every week, and let's make it happen. And then I'm going to commit to doing more YouTube videos every week too, to get some of that content out there too.
Love it. And I'm gonna pull you into my live show on Wednesday, Scott, one of these weeks. Okay.
Let's do it. Yeah, why not? I'm available. Awesome. Let's do it. I got the studio. I'm not doing anything.
I know. Yeah, it'd be a shame not to. You want to close this out, Pace?
Guys, we appreciate you. Please give us a good review on iTunes or Spotify if you've gotten value here. I know that I see people DMing Jamil and myself, Brent, week over week over week, talking about the deals they've done together. So squat up with each other in the comments. That's the main reason. That's a great book, by the way, dude. You were the one that introduced that book to me, and unfortunately, I had to read it like 4 times because it was packed full of so much good stuff. What's the name of that book, Brent?
The Road Less Stupid. The Road Less Stupid. Very good.
We have in our company, we only read books if Brent Daniels has suggested them. So I'm dead serious. I'm dead serious. Right. So guys, thank you so much. We will see you next week on Wholesale Hotline. Give Scott Oots some love on Instagram and on YouTube, and we'll see you guys next week.
Or just say squat up. Or just say squat up.
So squat up and